Hello, I'm Anthony Hughes. Dorico 4.3 is available now, and I'd love to share with you more than 40 new features and improvements that you will find in this update, which is free to all Dorico 4 users. We're extremely proud to announce a revolutionary new feature for generating notes from chord symbols. It's hard to believe it, but now you can make a selection across any number of staves where chord symbols are present, and Dorico will generate notes for each instrument using those chords. The feature is packed with rules and options so that the best possible voicings will be used. You can specify rhythms for which the notes will be created. You can supply a melodic top line to be used by an instrument of your choice. Specify which instruments should or should not play the bass note of each chord, and even influence the blending of instruments in between. This is an amazing tool for quickly fleshing out the harmony across a set of instruments, and you can have a load of fun playing with it. There's so much to talk about that I've prepared a video dedicated to this feature, which I shall link to here. We've made another round of huge improvements to our new key editor, which you can use in both play and write modes. The big news is now possible to work with multiple instruments at once in the key editor. So here I've selected all my strings, and I can see and edit them all at the same time here in the piano roll, giving me a great sense of the spread of the notes. And you can draw MIDI controller data into all selected instruments at once, or synchronize data from one of those instruments across all others, making it so much quicker and more reliable. The key editor is generally much easier to use as well, with the ability to load more than one editor, sizing them how you want, and being able to save and recall your favorite configurations. There are new scroll bars and zoom controls, better support for mouse pointers and key commands. It's a massive step up. Again, there's so much going on that I've made a separate video just about these features, so please do check that one out as well. Just look for the link. But hey, we all love a Dorico release that's packed full of those perhaps slightly smaller features that often make a real positive difference to the way we work. And Dorico 4.3 doesn't disappoint, so strap yourself in. I'm going to move quickly through these. The cut tool and its key command U has always been a great way to split notes at any position. Now, if you make a selection and press Alt-U, it will divide that selection into a series of notes, each with the duration of the rhythmic grid resolution. For example, I can set the grid to 16th notes, select this note, and press Alt-U. You'll quickly start to find all sorts of uses for this feature. Here, I'd like repeated 8th notes all the way to the end of this bar. So I can use the jump bar to quickly extend notes to the end of the selection, then set the grid resolution and press Alt-U to divide them into 8th notes. As you know, you can split notes at any arbitrary position by placing the caret and typing U to use the cut tool. But now pressing Alt-U when the caret is over a note will divide the note at that point and then continue to divide the note at intervals of the same duration. This means you can create a series of notes with a duration that cannot be achieved by using the grid resolution alone. Honestly, even if you don't have an immediate use for this, it's one of those features that's just really fun to play with. And there are also commands for splitting notes by specific durations, for which you can set up key commands or instigate with the jump bar. Force duration is used when you need to input specific durations that do not conform to the current note grouping options. Force duration is now sticky, meaning if you turn it on during note input, it will stay on, even when you stop and restart note input. Often, you might need to add a clef change for just a few bars, for example when the left hand of a piano part is easier to read using a treble clef. Now, if you select across a range, when you create a clef, Dorico will automatically add a restorative clef at the end of that range. A similar idea with repeat bar lines. Make a selection for as long as the repeated section should last, and when you add that start repeat bar line, Dorico adds the end repeat bar line. Also, now feel free to add or remove time within a repeat ending, and the span of the line will update to match the edit. Couple more on bar lines. They've always followed the primary bracket, but now there's a new layout option that lets you choose to separate bar lines at each instrument. In order to satisfy some early music conventions, we have added a new bar line type similar to the tick bar line, but with the tick at the bottom. This can be accessed in notation options, where you can set it as your default bar line. Furthermore, it's also possible, by way of an engraving option, to offset the tick at either the top or the bottom of the staff, and there's a property to extend ticks. When making a bar number change with a subordinate, you can now choose to show the subordinate immediately, rather than having to include the primary number as its own bar first. Over in the Tonality and Key Signatures panel, there are now two types of 24 EDO system to choose from in new projects, one using Gould arrows and the other using the Stein-Zimmermann accidental system. We've made some improvements to percussion. There are 2 new buttons in the tremolo section of the Repeat Structures panel for applying tremolos with release or attack with 1 click. You can also create these with the Shift-R popover by typing the number of strokes that you want, plus rel or at. It works for any instrument, but it's often needed with percussion. When defining percussion playing techniques to draw notes above or below the single staff line, you can now specify to draw those notes a bit further away to give a clearer visual indication. This is done by way of a new engraving option. You can also choose the default stem direction for single line percussion and even include grace notes in that decision. Chord symbols and diagrams also see some improvements. It's now possible to edit the capo chord symbol independently from the main chord symbol, which you can do just by double-clicking it in engrave mode. When showing fingering on chord diagrams, you can now omit certain positions by typing 0 as the fingering value. And while it was already possible to denote the use of the thumb manually, chord fingerings that use the thumb can now be included in the list of possible shapes by allowing them in note input options. And it's now possible to show bar chords using a solid line for the bar, a convention that's used especially when displaying chord diagrams horizontally. We've made some improvements to condensing. Horizontal and vertical lines are now included in condensed music, and trill auxiliary notes now show correctly, and there's a new option to let you show trilled notes on separate stems in order to show different trill intervals. Lyrics now, and we've added more control to setting the alignment of per syllable lyric types with a new section in engraving options, which also allows you to do things like override the alignment of the first lyric in each system in order to satisfy conventions used, for example, in US hymnals. And we've made it possible to export all the lyrics in a project to a text file. It separates out different flows, singers, and each line of lyrics. The brackets used for figured bass hold lines can now be set to squared with an engraving option. Previously, these were always rounded. Rehearsal marks now use a paragraph style rather than a font style, meaning they can be different sizes in full scores and instrumental parts. And the layout names paragraph style, which is used to show the instrument name on part layouts, now shows a rectangular border by default. Moving over to engrave mode, the note spacing tool has always shown system and frame fullness indicators. These now also appear when the graphical editing tool is active to assist you when formatting music with system and frame breaks. There's a new option to control when system dividers are shown, allowing you to specify a minimum number of staves or players to show dividers when the number of staves in each system differs across the page. There's a new set of notation options for rhythmic slashes, giving you control over things like how to group slashes in compound time signatures. You can now set key commands for the various panels of the lower zone. For example, I have set shortcuts for the Properties panel and Key Editor to quickly switch to them, even if the lower zone is hidden. You can also set a key command to cycle between the different panels, and you can access all of these commands from the jump bar. And there's also a new command to toggle hiding and showing selected note stems. This is already available down in the Properties panel, but having a command for it just makes it that much quicker and easier to access. So you can find this command on the jump bar, where of course you can set an alias to access it really quickly. There's a new property to hide the note head of a note, which can be useful when constructing certain techniques such as some prescribed glissandos. While we're in the area of properties, there's a new preference to always set properties locally or globally in new projects. Setting properties globally makes the change in all layouts, so now you can choose whether you want that to be the default or not. The play menu is now available in all modes, as almost all of the commands here are not restricted to play mode. There are new commands for deleting all of the automation data for a specific selection. This works in write mode, or you can select and delete all automation across entire instruments in write mode or tracks in play mode. That's a nice segue into play mode, and the left zone has been made wider on desktop, with VST and MIDI instruments given an updated design. It's possible once again to drag and drop MIDI files onto the tracks view, something that was previously available. Doing it in the new play mode, however, is even better than before, where it's now much more reliable to drop the file exactly where you want it. And it works for video files and cue-based chord symbols as well. Users with dozens of VSTs or plugins will find the new hierarchical menus easier to navigate. And if you own Steinberg's full Hallion or Hallion Sonic products, you can choose to use those as the default VST that's loaded, as opposed to the Hallion Sonic SE player that ships with Dorico. We've implemented some initial support for syncing VST instruments and effects to the tempo of your music. And finally, you can set the default output level of the mixer to be louder or quieter, depending on your setup in a new preference. So that's Dorico 4.3, available now. Remember, if you already own Dorico 4, this update, packed with all of these new features, is completely free to you. If you have yet to update to Dorico 4 or are thinking about switching to Dorico, there's never been a better time. I am so excited about this software. Now, I would love to know which of these new features is your favorite, so please let me know in the comments below. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and smash that bell button below to hear about all of our new videos. Those two that go into more details about the key editor and our revolutionary Generate Notes from Chord Symbols feature are already waiting for you, so please do check those out. And that's it. I'm Anthony Hughes. Thanks for watching.